Keep playing. That's good. Do a little background music. Again, there's stuff for sale in the back. There's only 4 of those Sasquatch heads, 75 bucks a piece, and then Ron's got some books and CDs in the back. Sarah's got a table full of stuff. And then we got a Bigfoot event coming up here. There's a flyer on the bar. That's coming up, I believe, in April in Auburn, Washington. No, we want the real thing. And I also want to mention real quick here, Barb, you won't mind this, that we have another local legend here, Tom Cantrell, everybody. If you don't know Tom's books, Tom is another guy that you should go talk to about cryptids. Tom's got a lot of great stories. Thanks for showing up, Tom. I really appreciate it. All right. Good to have you here, Mrs. Shupe.
Here.
What an environment we've set before you. This is like perfect for your costume.
This is amazing.
Yes. we've got a lot to talk about, and we kind of got the rest of the night to do it. So for people that don't know your story, tell them a little bit about how you got mixed up in this whole cryptid world.
Oh, wow.
It's
a long story.
Get in nice and tight on that mic. There you go.
Okay, so I live in a little tiny community of Greenwater north of Mount Rainier. The very first time I took a walk up the trail behind my cabin, I found broken trees and a perfect footprint, huge footprint. And I had always had an interest in Sasquatch since I was a kid, and when I saw that, I knew what it was. But, you know, that was 20 years ago, and back then I was under the impression that it was one lone individual that was just passing through to more remote areas. I never would have figured that there was a whole family who was up on the mountain behind my cabin as full-time residents. Over the years, there were so many strange things that would happen, and you know, owls that growled and rocks being thrown at us, things like that. There were a few times that I'd think to myself, you know, I wonder if that's a Sasquatch. Is that something a Sasquatch would do? And then I'd immediately talk myself out of it by saying, well, this is a small town. If there were Sasquatch around here, we'd know about it. It couldn't be. And then November 1st, 2012, I took my dog for a hike up to the top of the mountain behind the cabin, and it had been years since I'd been up there. We got up to the top, almost to the top, and there's a spot by the trail where the view kind of opened up, and there's a nice stump right there beside the trail to sit on, so I figured, okay, we'll take a little break here before the last push to the top of the mountain. And while I'm sitting there, I start hearing this bizarre talking from the woods just below me. And you know, I had heard at that point, I'd heard of the Sierra sounds, but I didn't believe it. You know, back then I was still thinking just another form of wildlife. You know, wildlife can't talk. What I was thinking was, I was thinking of all the horror movies that I'd ever seen, and we got some mutants out here. That's what I was thinking. And yeah.
Mutants, all right.
Well, it didn't sound like samurai chatter. It sounded maybe Germanish, if anything. So,
okay.
And maybe there was some mutant German hunters down there, you know, something like that. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, those guys. Being German. Right.
So, being up there just myself and my dog, you know, the whole point of going up there was because a local timber faller, an old retired fella, had told me that he knew where the Sasquatches lived, that they lived in the valley behind the mountain, behind the cabin. Because back in the 70s, they had been logging up there, and big oil drums and equipment and stuff had been tossed off down into the canyon where the creek comes from that flows past my cabin. So that was my whole thing to go up there that day. I had a couple of good sticks in my backpack, and I was going to go up and make some knocks and see if I could get some kind of response. So here I'm sitting there listening to this strange talking, not even thinking Sasquatch. But, you know, if they're hunters that are down there, I don't want them shooting. So right. I figured, well, and I don't really want them to know that I'm a female out here by myself either. So what do? I get my sticks out and I make a knock, and it stops immediately. You know, that was it. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening some more. Nothing else happens, and I'm thinking, okay, the time's flying. It's getting late. Let's get to the top of the hill. So I stand up, and immediately right behind me, I hear this deep guttural, this grunt. Well, right behind me, you know, the brush was so thick you couldn't see a foot into it. So I'm thinking there must be a bear just on the other side of these bushes, and it's time to move on up the hill. So right. we get up to the top. I get my sticks out, you know, I'm looking at this canyon where the creek flows way down there, and I do some knocks, no response. I was so disappointed, no Bigfoot activity up there. So it's getting late in the day, we start back down, and there's this one stretch of trail where it gets down onto a logging road, and the logging road goes down, and there's like this switchback. But instead of taking the switchback, the trail, I just went ahead and took the trail that's between the upper and lower stretches of road. And at that point, it had been selectively logged through there. So it was really open. You could see clearly for a good distance. And we're halfway down this little narrow stretch of trail between the upper and lower roads, and I hear this very human-like whistle right beside me on the trail, and it's like, there's nobody there. And immediately at the bottom of the trail by the logging road, there's another whistle. There's nobody there. And, you know, me and the dog are looking at each other, and we're looking around, and okay, I don't know what that was. Must have been the elk, you know. I've been around the elk for many, many years and never heard anything quite like that, but, you know, must have been the elk.
Right.
That's what you chalk them up to, something that you know, something you're aware of. So we keep walking. We get down to the lower stretch of the road, and from that point, the trail is really steep and rutted out. So from that point, we decided to go ahead and go down the logging road. So my dog's walking ahead of me, and we get to this kind of a bend in the road, and we go around the bend. She stops, and she looks back at me, so I know there's something up around the bend. I take a few more steps, and sure enough, there's a couple of elk standing in the road. Okay, that's what it was. It was elk. So we go on down around the next switchback, and I look up, and there's the whole herd of elk up on the bank. Oh, wow, cool, there's the whole herd. And we just keep walking. And the next thing I know, I hear this, I can feel it, the thundering of hooves as they all come down across the road behind me and run through the woods off to the side. And it's, wow, there goes the elk. And then it's like, what is that? Gorilla? We don't have any gorillas. Oh my God, it's Bigfoot. And he's just kind of off at this angle from me. And when I first looked and saw him, he's facing me. And as soon as I saw him, he turned, and it was just profile, and he went right off in the same direction as the elk. Although the elk were running at top speed, he appeared to be just floating along, just walking. And I watched him. I could only see him from about chest up, so I could see his head and his shoulders. I could see this huge crown where his head went back, and this big cone, massive jaw. He had this big brow ridge where above it, instead of having a forehead like this, it went straight back. It was like scooped out over his eyes, but he had these two bony ridges that went up the side like this, and his skin was pasty pale white, and his eyes seemed to be black. His hair was black and had a little bit of wave to it, and I can remember thinking, you know, with a good brushing, that'd be a beautiful coat. But my thought was, should I be afraid? And I thought to myself, well, you know, you spent the last 30 years in the woods most of the time by yourself. You've never been afraid before. Why should you be afraid now? If they wanted to get you, they would have got you a long time ago, you know. And if you're going to be afraid, that's a conscious decision to be afraid. And if I make that decision, my life will never be the same again. I'll never be able to go outside again. And I didn't feel like I was threatened, so why should I be afraid? His focus appeared to be on the elk. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at them. So we just stood there and watched him go by, and he got just to the edge of this tree line where he was above the final leaves of the maple, the vine maple that hadn't come completely down yet. And I'm thinking, okay, one more step, and I'm going to see the full figure. And he took that one more step, and he wasn't there anymore. It was like he walked behind an invisible wall. He just vanished into thin air. And at that point in time, I had never heard of cloaking before. It wasn't an option. That wasn't something that I was even beginning to be capable of understanding. So I stood there for probably 10 minutes, and I stared at that spot trying to figure out where it went. And I finally took my eyes off that spot, and I looked down at Gabby, my dog. She's standing beside me, and she's staring right at that same spot too. She hadn't moved a muscle, didn't move, not an inch. And we looked at each other, and it's like, it's getting dark, we better go. So I spent the next 2 days just trying to wrap my head around what I'd seen. For the next 2 weeks after that, I made several trips back up to that spot, and I looked at that, where I was and where he was, the lay of the land, trying to rationalize what I had seen. And finally it came down to, well, he must have dropped to the ground faster than my eyes could perceive and then crawled away behind a rise of ground. Well, that was a rational explanation, and now I could finally tell people that I saw Bigfoot, because, I mean, it's hard enough to say, hey, I saw Bigfoot. And then, but yeah, he just vanished into thin air. That was just too far.
Right.
How do you do that?
Yeah, you weren't ready.
So once I had that part of it rationalized, I contacted the BFRO and I made a report. I started asking my neighbors, people that come into the store, locals, if they'd ever seen anything. I was shocked at how many people had experiences. You know, it's a small town, and when you're in a small town, people talk, and you pretty much know everything there is to know about everybody. But there are certain things that people don't talk about unless you ask them. And there were a lot of stories that came out, and there were a lot of people that wouldn't say a word if there was anybody else around. You know, it's
Right.
And then there were the people that it opened up conversation, and they didn't even realize they'd had an experience until we started talking about it, and it'd be along the lines of, "You mean they throw things?"
Right.
We thought that was kids messing with us.
Yeah.
You know, or the Ohio howl type screams, you know, we've heard those up there before, and people would chalk that up to, well, it must have been a sick elk. Or, you know, if you don't already have Sasquatch in your mind as something that's a real option, your brain is never going to go there when you're trying to rationalize what you're experiencing. It's going to be the last thing that you think of because it's not an option. Like cloaking, it wasn't an option.
No. So is that where the Greenwater book came from? Is that you won did you put that book out at the little store?
Well, originally my boss that owned the store at the time bought the book.
Okay.
And put it out, and so we could collect reports that way. And then we filled that one up and got another book and filled that one up. Well, then he sold the store, and he took the books with him.
Oh, he did?
He did. So the new owner put a book out, too, but nobody really uses that one. It's mostly just, you know, say I've been here, or, you know, I know Bigfoot, that's my brother-in-law, or, you know, something like that. So
now, have they ever been seen right there in the town of Greenwater by the store?
They have. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, there's several things that have happened. The most recent was...
and bring that mic in a little bit closer. It kind of wants to bend down. There you go.
This last year, my Gabby dog passed away, and it broke my heart. There was a lot of support came from the Barb and Gabby fans, from our group. We have a very close group of people that go out and spend time in the woods together, and we had a memorial at the cabin, and we decorated with the fall leaves, and the forest people decorated the bridge with fall leaves in support for Gabby. Well, it was about January, I think, that I started thinking about, okay, the spring is coming, I'm going to get a dog. And it popped into my head that, well, you know, you're getting kind of old, and how many dogs are you going to have in your life? You know, I've had a red dog, and I had a black dog, and I had a multicolored dog. Maybe it's time for me to have a gold dog. And this just kind of popped into my head. Well, then, this guy that I work with lives behind the store. And I mentioned to him one day, you know, I'm thinking maybe I should have a gold puppy. Next time I should have a gold one. Well, then a couple of weeks later, he comes in and he says, "You're never going to believe this." He says, "My dog, who is an Australian Shepherd, had a litter of 11 puppies. They're all either black or black and gray spotted, but there's one gold puppy in the litter." So within a few days of the puppies being born, they were having rocks thrown at the cabin. I have a good friend who lives right next door to them. She got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and looked out the window and was eye to eye with a full-grown mature Sasquatch that just looked at her and then slipped off around the corner in the direction of the cabin where the puppies were. Also, the puppy was the one puppy that was born outside. They thought that the mom was done giving birth and had let her go out to go potty. And when he let her back in, the door was that far from being closed, and there was 4 feet of snow outside. And some little tiny sound caught his attention. He went out and looked, and he found the little gold puppy out in the snow. So, so that's my Goldie girl.
Wow.
She fixed my broken heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before that, there were a lot of experiences, reports that would come from the campground around the store and other places. A friend had a bus that was rocked. Sightings, road crossings right there by the store. strange lights across the river, footprints on the gravel bar that's in the middle of the river, things like that. But the story of around Goldie, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Now, there's yuppies that have moved in up there too from the big city, and they're not accustomed to folklore being folk fact. Have they had stuff happen too? I mean, have you heard stories about the city folk getting messed with, or is it mostly people? Because Tom Powell has this theory, right, that it's people that are kind of entrenched and live there, and they have this air about them. But I wonder about the city folk getting stuff.
Well, it seems like the people that want to talk to me that have reports are the ones that have been there for a long time. They're the more down-to-earth ones. Right. The people that are worried about their reputations, the ones that are worried that somebody's going to think they're crazy, they don't want to talk about it. So if they've had an experience or not, they're not going to acknowledge it. Most of the reports that I get at the store anymore are when I eavesdrop on people's conversations, because they'll come in and they'll see my sticker display with the Bigfoot stuff. And it always starts off with, "Oh my God, those are real," and they'll tell their story to their friend. Yeah. And that's where a lot of the reports come from now. But things like skiers that have something cross the road in front of them. I had a girl in there about a year ago that was still feeling traumatized. She was on her way up to the ski resort, and just as they were about to turn off up to Crystal Mountain Boulevard, one crossed the road right in front of her, and she said it turned its head and looked at her, and it had red glowing eyes. And so it wasn't seeing the Sasquatch that traumatized her, it was seeing those red glowing eyes looking at her that freaked her out.
So explain to people what you mean glowing and compared to eye shine.
Eye shine is like a reflective thing, like when you're out in the woods at night and you shine your light on a deer or your dog or the cat, and you get that reflective glint, as the light hits it just right. When the Sasquatch's eyes glow, it's completely different. It's like an internal light. It's something that they can turn on and off. They can change the color.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They can change the color.
They can change the color.
Have you seen that?
I have.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
One of my favorite stories of seeing the eye glow, the first time I went to the Blue Mountains, Tom's old stomping grounds, he's the one that took us there the first time. I had already seen it 2 nights right at the edge of camp, and it was, almond-shaped eyes about so big that right at the edge of camp they just turned on and turned off. And then one night we were going to have a night sit down at this lower area where we all go and sit in a circle facing outward and look for sparkles, eye glow, shines, little lights, anything, just sitting there in the dark, see what's going to happen. And there was I don't know, 7 or 8 of us. We got down to this spot, and I realized that there was a friend that wasn't with us. So I went back up to the main cabin, the guard station where we were staying, to let her know where we were. And, of course, she was inside having a conversation with Tom, and I told her what was going on. So as walking back down there, it's pitch black. There's no moon. We're underneath the trees. And as I'm walking past where my tent is, I look over, and about 10 feet off the ground, there's 2 tennis ball-sized red eyes watching me. And what do? Instead of stopping and saying hello, I just said, "I'm going to go sit with everybody and look for eye shine," and I just kept walking. It's like, okay. But he was right there beside my tent. And they were literally big tennis ball sized.
Yeah, it's almost like a baseball size that you're doing. Okay.
The last time I saw him was a trip there the year before last. And there's 2 buildings that are relatively close. And we heard a big bang on one of the buildings, which got our attention. And I started looking in that direction. Everybody else had their back that way. And right at the corner of the one building, about so far off the ground, so I would imagine he must have been squatted down, there were white eyes with a kind of a grayish white with a yellowish tint in them that just turned on and turned off. And it's not a matter of opening and closing their eyes. They were open, and they
like
just...
a dimmer switch?
No, just on and off.
Oh, blink. They blink on and off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even creepier.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. But
Yeah.
the eye color change I'd never heard of till today.
Yeah.
Has anybody else seen the eye color change on a Sasquatch? Yeah, Tom, yeah, you have. Sherlock knows. All right. Okay, interesting. So this whole idea that we have something highly supernatural and paranormally charged, like Bigfoot is, there I said it, you go on to capture, and we're going to talk a little bit about this here in a bit, this incredible video here of something cloaking. And when I first got involved with this, I talked to long-term witnesses because that's what Sally Shepard Welford said to do. I don't know if you know who that is, but she wrote this book called Valley of the Skookum, right?
Excellent
And she
book.
said if you're ever going to get involved, and so did Autumn, with knowing more about Bigfoot stuff, it's getting involved with people that live with it. And so I tell you what, as soon as you get involved with talking to people that live with this phenomenon, let's say backyard Bigfoot phenomena, they usually have the crazier stories, right? And so knowing the fact that you have this crazy video that we're going to show here, this stuff gets really personal really quick. I mean, it's fun and games for the fact that it's really amazing what happens, but I mean, this stuff really happens, right? The supernatural is entirely entrenched in this phenomena. So how has that changed your worldview? Because it has to. And what has it done to you personally? I mean, it's probably not all been good. I mean, there's probably been some ramifications.
Well, when the video, we first got it on camera, you know, up until that point, I'd been making YouTube videos every week, just going out in the woods and documenting whatever happens. And, you know, whether it was structures or vocals or footprints, you know, whatever happened. I also, back in those days, I gifted. Every week I'd go out and I'd leave pies and jars of peanut butter. And, you know, I'd never had a bad experience with the Sasquatch.
Right.
You know, so that was one of our first campouts. I think it was the second group campout we had. And I'd taken some people up the trail behind the cabin just to show them some structures, just give them a little tour of some of the broken trees and interesting things that were up there. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, I used to always have my camera attached to my walking stick, and it was just on, just in case. You know, I wasn't like focusing in on where I was filming, it was just on. So I'm standing there and we're talking about this tree. You know, things happen. What I saw was a Sasquatch jump up and run off, and the camera happened to be pointed in the right direction. You know, so awesome, maybe we got something. So, you know, we finished what we were doing, and later on that night got back to camp and took a look at what I had on camera and put it on a bigger screen and looked at it again and put it on a really big screen. And by the time we got to the really big screen, I just kind of sat down and cried, because this was just, it was such a shock to the system. Even though I had seen that Sasquatch disappear, 2 years before, I had rationalized that. Right. I had turned it into something that my brain could accept. And all the videos that I had been making and all the things, all the documenting I had been doing had been based on a total physical being.
Oh, up to that point?
Up to that point.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
So the whole woo thing was alien to me until that point.
And what did you think of those people? Did you have
I
an
just
opinion?
kind of thought they were crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't go there. That wasn't,
right.
You know, I don't watch other people's videos on YouTube.
Right.
You know, and, you know, when I do hear things like that, even the talking, you know, Ron's Sierra sounds. When I first started this, I thought the idea that they had language was crazy.
Right.
So to go from, okay, here is a form of wildlife that can talk, and they can turn invisible?
Right.
So it was just...
We know how this sounds, by the way, because the words are coming out of our mouth and we hear it. It sounds nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was really hard for me to process, because those weren't options when I started this.
Right.
You know? It wasn't until I actually experienced them firsthand, and suddenly you find your mind has become really expanded. Mm-hmm. And the more you get into it and the more experiences you have with that, the more it gets to be that you're just not surprised by these things anymore.
What do we know about the area where you saw this happen? Is there any kind of Native American implications? Is there anything there geologically that would amp up it being like a power place? Do we know?
Well, it's right on the river, on a glacier river off of Mount Rainier.
Okay.
Which, if anybody's ever read Valley of the Skookum, the stories in that book are also on the Carbon River, which is also a glacier river off of Mount Rainier.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that she talks about in that book are the same things that we experience in Greenwater.
Right.
And if this is just pure speculation, but I think that the river is full of silt that's getting washed down, and all those particles. That's a big river. It's a powerful river, and all that silt's got to rub against itself, and that's got to create some kind of spark, some kind of energy. And personally, I think that the rivers, that silt coming down in the river, is what creates the energy that they use to do what they do. Mm-hmm. For some of the lights and some of the stranger things that happen. Mm-hmm. I think that they're drawn to it. How they use it, I don't know how they tap into it, but I think that the glacier water has something to do with it.
Now, it's a short video. When you see this, it's not a 5-minute video at all, but it's a pretty powerful one. And we're going to play here. But before we do, have you ever been visited by anybody because of this video? About pulling it, maybe?
Like Men in Black?
Whatever.
Nope.
Nothing like that?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Have you received a lot of ridicule?
Probably, but I don't really pay attention.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and nobody's going to tell me that I'm right or I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to do it, and if you like it, great, and if you don't like it, well, that's your problem. You're really only going to hurt my feelings if I already have a lot of respect and care about you.
Right.
So if you're somebody that I don't know and you don't like it, I don't care.
Go pound sand.
Yeah.
But no one's ever made you question what you filmed. You still see.
Oh no, I know
image.
what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what was there.
Yeah.
I know what I saw. I can't tell you what the camera picked up because what the camera picked up isn't what I saw. What I saw was a flesh and blood creature, stood up, turned, and ran. When we went back the next day, you could see the trackway that it left. There were 9-inch prints. We found a second trackway that went back and behind a pile of logs and came back to where the first one was. And Thinker Thunker did an evaluation of the film, and he found that just before the event happened, there were trees in the background that bent. Mm-hmm. And right in that cluster of trees is where the deepest footprint was, where something pushed off of it with enough force that the footprint was that far down into the ground, and the trees were that big around where it had been bent. And at the same time this was happening, my dad and his wife were sitting up on the main trail just about 100 feet away. They heard the commotion. She had a little dog in her lap. The dog looks this way. And I'm thinking when it happened, maybe they saw it run across the trail, but it never did.
Right.
She looked across the trail, and she described what she said was a small baby monkey came head first down the tree and disappeared into the bushes. So we know that there were at least two. The two trackways were both 9-inch prints, two individuals, juveniles that were the same size, whether they were twins, siblings, cousins, I don't know, but they also had a baby. Mm-hmm. Sandy was there not long after that. She came through. She didn't know any of this had happened at the time, but when she came through, she heard a mother calling the children.
Oh, really?
And she gave me a hard time because she thought I was talking to our campers like they were children. But no, it wasn't us. We had gone in the other direction. But
well, let's show people this. I'm going to take these off. And the person in the back that's closest to the cook's door back there is a dimmer knob switch back there that's going to control. Actually, we want to work the one over here by the couch when we get the chance. So let me come over here to the computer. If you see that, yeah, there you go. Okay. So let me get this loaded up here. So which one should I show first, Barb?
Show the original clip first, okay. and then we can do the zoomed and looped one.
Now, yeah. Should I use the audio?
Yeah.
All right, let's go back here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a thrust and not a hang,
Yeah, something hard and fast. What the heck was that? Did you see that?
Did anybody see anything there? Yeah, because it's in the background. It was about 80 feet in front of me.
What the heck was that? Did you see that?
You know,
Yeah,
like a thrust and not a hang.
yeah. Something hard and fast. What the heck was that? Did you see that?
Sands have been
Okay.
Now there's an advanced one.
Okay, go ahead and show him the zoomed in loop version.
Okay, you see that right there? Done. Right in here, let's play it again.
Okay, you can see the horizontal log right behind it. When I saw it was when it popped up on the back side of that log and took off running to the left. It was about 5 feet tall, covered in black hair, had no neck. It was almost triangular shaped. So what you're seeing here, I don't know if that's one individual, I don't know if that's two individuals,
It's going to loop it over and over again.
but it went down and it popped up on the back side of that log and took off running. It was all arms and legs.
Yeah. And if anybody's having trouble seeing it on the screen, I can show you later here on the computer, but I'll leave that playing there so it can recycle. Okay, you can turn that up a little bit more there on the dimmer there. Thank you, impromptu light technician. Yeah, I mean, I can see it because I'm looking at a HD screen here, but people can go online and look at this too. So you plainly see the silhouette of some little, well, it looks smaller, but it's not. It's bigger.
It was slightly shorter than Sandy, and Sandy's, what are you, 5'5"? 5'2",
yeah.
yeah, so it was about 5 feet tall. Yeah,
Okay.
It wasn't huge.
No.
And it left 9-inch tracks, which
Pull that mic on you just a little bit.
the trackway of 9-inch prints,
Yeah.
yeah, that would put it right at about 5 feet tall.
Okay. So what has happened since in that area? Is this a hot spot that you still go to?
Oh yeah, this is only, as the bird flies, maybe a few hundred feet from my cabin.
Wow. So yeah.
Yeah.
Is this near where you saw the red lights?
No, that was over in the Blue Mountains.
Oh, I mean when you played the drum. I think you said that when you played Aaron's drum, you had little red lights. Did you say that?
No, the drum felt like it was singing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you saw lights when you played it, but I guess not.
No, I've
Okay.
seen a lot of lights though, but not with the drum.
Okay.
No.
So what do you think the connection is with these weird lights and this phenomena? Do you think that's them?
Somehow or another, the lights are associated with the Sasquatches. I'm not sure how. One of the first things that happened that made it very clear to us that these are part of it, because you go out looking for Sasquatch and you have the sparkly lights, you have the flashing lights, you have the burst of lights. The year before last at our Greenwater camp out, Sandy and Kevin were in their tent, and they had the sparkles that came into their tent.
Right.
That same camp out, people had the flashes of light. They had beams of light. The sparkles that were in their tent came with a young Sasquatch that they named Click, who sat on the outside of their tent and communicated with Kevin for a few hours. So we know that the sparkles come and go with the Sasquatches. This last May at our Greenwater camp out, it was 2:30 in the morning. I had just gone into my tent. I had Goldie. She was 6.5 weeks old. I had just stuffed her into my sleeping bag with me, and a brilliant light comes on and illuminates the entire front of my tent. And when it comes on, it shows the outline of an upright figure inches from my tent wall. The light goes and it shifted. I could see tree limbs in the shadows. The trees were limbed up high. This light was coming from up above. The light shifted down to the lower corner of the tent. The figure disappeared, and a portal in my tent opened. It just went open and close, and it just showed me somebody's living room somewhere with a brick fireplace and 2 couches, and it just opened and closed. And after the portal closed, the little light was still down there. What had been a massive light was still in the lower corner. A gray silvery mist formed right there where the portal was, and it changed from one face to another. I believe this was their way of showing me the different faces of the Sasquatch people. Some of them were very ape-like. Some of them were more human-like, but very, very robust. And it just morphed from one face into another face, into another face. And I just laid there and watched that until I fell asleep.
Wow, this gray mist was kind of like an
Yeah, it was-
etch-a-sketch,
yeah.
and it just kind of
Just
misted
in-
all
yeah.
these faces.
Kind of
And
a silvery mist.
This was like 3 days before we got there, wasn't it?
No, that you guys came in July. This was in May.
Okay, gotcha. But
Yeah.
did you have something similar happen in your tent as well before we got there? Or maybe you were speaking about this incident. I might be
This
getting
may have
these-
been it, yeah.
Okay.
But
Interesting.
it's gotten to the point now where we've become very accustomed to having the lights when we go on our campouts. You know, you wake up in the middle of the night and you don't know what woke you up.
Right.
Or, you know, you'll just be laying there trying to go to sleep and all of a sudden the big lights come, you know, and whether it's a big beam that's shining on your tent, whether it's the sparkles that are actually in your tent.
And different sizes, different colors, different
Yeah.
consistency. They can be round. They can be burst.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We had a woman from Scotland that comes periodically to join us, and she's always been terrified. She, you know, she won't go down to the potty tent by herself. She tries to be brave. Her and David, who's sitting back here, were the last two by the fire pit one night, and they saw some large bursts of light nearby. And within a few minutes, they heard a very strange pinging sound just above them. And Yvonne's fear vanished. And from that point on, she was the one, has been the one that offers to take other people to the potty tent at night.
Really?
Yeah. They took her fear away from her.
Wow. It's almost like they kind of downloaded a good vibes on her or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, but see, these things are always like in association with these lights, you know?
Now, there's been UFOs spotted too over this
Yeah.
area, like
Yeah.
large size triangular craft.
Yep, that was the same camp out where I had the
Okay.
figure and the portal. That was the same camp out just a few days before.
Okay. Yeah. And do we have witnesses that saw this large triangle? I think there was somebody.
There's a hand went up
Okay.
back there.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that here after the show too. I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Have you seen these two? Is it one certain type of craft that's seen over the tree line, or is it multiple different types?
I don't know. Personally, I've only seen the lights. I haven't seen.
Oh, you haven't seen?
I haven't
Okay.
seen a craft. I've seen the lights.
Yeah.
But not an actual craft that they come from.
Right.
Yeah.
What else is out there besides? Is there a ghost as well in that area? Are there things that?
Well, you know, I used to work at the local tavern, and that was so haunted. You know, for years, you know, you'd hear the ghost stories about the tavern, and then the years that I spent working there, I had so many experiences. But in hindsight, you know, I look back at it now, and it makes me wonder. Okay, were those experiences ghosts? Were those experiences Sasquatch?
Right.
You know, because here's the tavern is right there in the woods, and a lot of the things that happened were focused on the outside of the building.
Right.
You know, I saw orbs in the parking lot there with my bare eyes. It wasn't something that I got a picture of on camera. I just saw them going through, you know, things like that. And so I don't know of the difference. How do you tell the difference? Something that happened just about a year ago, you know, after Gabby passed away, to go to my cabin, and I think I sent you a picture of this as an example.
Oh, you want me to bring that image
sure,
up?
go
Yeah,
ahead,
let me
put
bring
that
this
up.
up. You talk and I'll bring it up.
So I was on my way back to the cabin one night, about 10, 11 o'clock, and you got to go over a bridge over the Greenwater River, and the road kind of curves down to the bridge. And as I'm starting the descent on this part of the road, I can see there's something on the bridge. And as I'm getting down lower and the tree branches are out of the way, it's like a cloud person. It's like somebody has got their back to me, and it's like they're all hunched over, like if somebody was walking through a storm and they had their hands in their pockets and they're just all hunched over and they're walking to the far end of the bridge, except it was they weren't like a solid white. They had like gray, paler spots where they were translucent. And I didn't know what it was. I thought I was seeing a ghost. It walked to the far end of the bridge and just vanished. And within a few nights of that, I had a dream about being in the river and looking up, and there was a Sasquatch on the far side of the river. And I waved, and he looked at me, and I saw from one side it was like another Sasquatch just bolted off through the woods just so fast. And then on this side, there was like the cloud person took off. Like what I saw on the bridge, just took off through the woods so fast. And then on this side, it was just the shimmer, the something in the shape of a Sasquatch, but it shimmered and it took off. And then on this side, there was nothing. It was just the bushes and the vegetation being mowed down. And I took that as a message that they were teaching me the different phases or the different kinds of cloaking,
Right.
showing me how that works. When we did a reenactment we did it twice, once with Tom and once with David, where I had my car parked right there because I saw it long enough that I got to the bottom of the hill and stopped before I drove over the bridge watching it. And we put them in the spot where I first saw it and had them walk to the far end of the bridge. Well, in as many steps as what I saw the cloud person take from the middle of the bridge to the far end, it only took 4 or 5 steps. But when these guys took 4 or 5 steps, they went from one post to the next post, and there's like 4 more posts to get to the far end of the bridge.
Right.
You know, they were considerably smaller than the cloud person was.
Wow.
So that was how we reenacted it anyway, was putting a person there and having them do it.
Yeah. And that's quite
So
the reproduction.
this isn't an actual photo of
Right.
it. This was just for demonstration purposes. I took a picture of the bridge and just drew in what I saw.
Wow. Did you have a question? Or are you just stretching? Okay. No. Have you noticed any kind of latent abilities in your own life, either in the sleeping state or maybe more psychic abilities on your end that have happened since you've had encounters with these cryptids?
You know, other than feeling like I'm getting messages in dreams sometimes,
Right.
you know, things pop into your head. You get ideas and you wonder where they came from. Things that you experience or think about, and suddenly within hours or days, that experience will come to you.
Right.
You know, things like that. You know, I can't say that I'm more psychic or less psychic or anything like that, other than strange things happen. Really
What about
strange things.
in your own family line? Is there any history at all of abduction or anything close to
No.
that? Not on your
No,
mom's
but my
side?
dad really wants to be abducted.
Do you want him to be abducted too?
No, I don't want him to
Okay,
be. No,
all right.
no, but no, there's no history of that as far as I know, other than,
Yeah.
than my dad really wants them to come and get him.
All right. I'd never heard that before as a strong wish. Come on in, folks. Yeah, there's a door right there if you want. Interesting. All right. Well, this is an opportunity here. I'm going to open up the floor for people that may have questions for Barb. If you have any specifics here about her sighting, about cloaking. Has anybody else seen anything that cloaks at all besides, I know Tom has before, but the idea that something can go translucent I know is a hard one. But if you hadn't seen this video before, you can, like I said, you can go online and look at it. But it's a rare opportunity to actually catch something like this on video. What do you think some of the misnomers are about this phenomena, Barb, as far as who these people, I'm going to call them people, who these people are?
I have no idea. They're definitely another kind of people. And, you know, I think
do you think there's bad ones?
there may be. I haven't come across a bad one yet. You
Yeah.
know? There's maybe things that are out there that when they're not there, other things come in.
Right.
There may be a few that aren't the family-oriented ones that we're used to. You know, there may
Right.
be somebody out there that's not so friendly, but I haven't come across that.
No, I mean, for the most part, when you get involved with this, you talk to people that don't have traumatic experiences, but the ones that do, they really turn into the fact that there's a monster out in the woods, and that's just something I'm not familiar with.
See, the whole monster thing, you know, that's for movies. That's for people that want to go out and get scared. The reality of it is they're not monsters. They're just different than us, you know. They're bigger, you know, they're unknown.
Right.
The unknown is always scary, you know. Things that are bigger than us are always scary.
Yeah.
But I've never had an experience where I actually felt like I was threatened. You know,
I haven't either. I mean,
I'm more in awe of anything. You know, back in the beginning, there were things that would happen, and you kind of feel your heart go up into your throat and kind of catch there, and the adrenaline rush is really intense, and the next day you kind of feel like you're hungover just from the adrenaline.
yeah.
But I don't even really get that anymore. You know,
No. It's an old hat for you.
It is. It's pretty comfortable.
And you have campouts that aren't exactly open enrollment campouts. You have people that want to go on these campouts, and you kind of have to vet them because their minds are blown, right? I mean, there's a learning curve to this.
There is. And, you know, I think part of the reason that our campouts are so successful is, you know, the people that when we gather, we each bring our own energy and our own experiences. And a lot of our members in our group, you know, have their own thing going on that they've been doing for years on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you bring that all together and you know, it's greater than just having us together.
Right.
Builds such a tremendous amount of positive energy that I think it really attracts, you know, whoever's out there. Sometimes I think they look forward to it as much as we do.
Yeah.
And you know, when you get, we don't have room for people that are going to be out there to blow that kind of energy. You know, it's we're there having fun and having amazing experiences. And
Yeah.
you know, you get your one person that's gonna, you know, just kind of put a kink in everything. Well, we don't need that.
And I mean, it's guys, gals. You have kids there that show
Yeah.
up. It's kind of pet friendly too. And what's the largest group that you've put together? I mean, have you had more than 40 or 50
Oh,
people?
no.
Okay.
We try to limit it to 20, but you know,
Yeah.
I think the most that we've ever had at one time was maybe 25.
Yeah.
And
activity still happens.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
We spread out. When we go in, we try to take over a whole area, you know, so
Right.
it's just us. We don't, you know, we don't want other campers in the area that don't know what we're doing. First of all, we don't want to freak people out.
Right.
You know, that just happen to wind up camping next to us. We don't want to scare anybody. And
Right.
yeah, we don't want anybody hoaxing us. We don't want somebody coming in and just playing games with us, you know. So
Right.
when we go in, we spread out over an area, and then we've got our main campsite where we come and have our meals and,
Right.
and our fire, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
cool.
It is cool. So when's the next one?
We've just wrapped up our last one for this year up in British Columbia a couple of weeks ago, and we haven't made any new plans for
You've
the
gone
next season yet.
international with Barb and Goldie?
Yeah.
What? Okay. Vancouver, Brian Bland style?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I've seen the pictures. All right. That's a beautiful cut of country.
Oh, it was fantastic. It
Yeah.
was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
So stuff's coming up in 2020, and there's a conference coming up. Plug the conference.
Okay, so the first weekend in April, Sasquatch Rendezvous Conference. It'll be at the Community College, or Auburn College, Green River College in Auburn.
Okay.
I guess it's not a community college anymore.
Don't know.
Yeah. So what the point of this conference is going to be is to connect the physical and the metaphysical, to help people that are thinking, okay, we've got a form of wildlife here that's purely physical, you know, to go from footprints and tree breaks and all the physical things and connect that to the rest of it. Because, you know, there's a big gap in the Bigfoot world. You got your apers and you got your woo, okay? And somewhere in between, everybody kind of has to cross that bridge and get where they need to go. And, you know, so we're just going to work on talking about teaching people how to go from one to the other. You know,
But they
don't get
usually go
stuck.
from one side of the creek to the other. They never go from...
No, you never go from woo back to aper. It
No,
doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
No.
Right. So you're putting on a 2-day conference?
Yeah.
What days is that again?
April 4th and 5th.
And there's flyers back here.
Yep.
There's flyers in the bar. There are red cover flyers and business cards. And did I see that Rick Knoll?
Yes. He's
Wait
not
a
only going to
second.
be speaking, he's bringing the Skookum cast.
Wait. Okay, that's amazing in itself. He's going to be speaking at a Woo-covered...
Yep.
Is there some groundbreaking news that I don't know about? Maybe?
Well, just having the Skookum cast is pretty groundbreaking.
That's pretty groundbreaking.
But
he would
that's
never
physical. That is physical.
Yes.
And he's going to come and he's going to talk about his experiences. What he's going to share, I don't know exactly.
Okay.
But we've got a great list of speakers. You know, Iran's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy Blount, Tom.
Yeah.
We've got the exhibits, and it's not just the Skookum cast. We've got and other casts that we're going to have. Biggie will be there. You're
Biggie.
Speaking.
Yeah.
You're going to be one of our presenters.
Yeah.
We're going to have a sound bank of vocalizations that you can listen to. It's going to be, we're going heavy on the exhibits and vendors. There's going to be all kinds of stuff you can be able to purchase, the metaphysical type things,
Right.
or just the regular Bigfoot stuff, you know, that you'd find at a normal conference. But yeah, it's going to be cool.
Yeah, it should be good.
We're going to bridge the gap.
We're going to bridge the gap. And if you don't know who Biggie is, he's a model that we made for Ron last year. He's an 8.5 foot tall Sasquatch. He damn near touched the ceiling if I had him in here right now. He's 4 feet wide. He's a big boy, so he'll be there, and then be some good presentations, especially if the Skookum cast is going to show up. I didn't know that. Does anybody, I mean, the Skookum cast is a large size plaster cast. I don't know how many bags. We're talking well over probably 10 bags of 50-pound bags of hydrocal or plaster, and it's supposedly a Sasquatch laying on its side reaching for an apple, and they did a large-scale plaster impression of it. That's great. So it must be a reprint he's bringing, not the actual.
No, I believe it's the original.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to have Sandy's and Kevin's, we'll call it lady part Sasquatch print that's going to show up. I'm going to bring the knees. Rick Knoll's going to bring the torso. It's like a Franken-squatch. We can just put them all together. Nice. Does anybody have any feet they can bring? That should be easy to come by. Right. We just need a face. All right, cool. Nice. Is there anything I'm forgetting to plug with you? Anything coming up?
I'm working on the camp out series from our British Columbia camp out. Got some awesome stuff coming up on that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what? I put up the video, too, of Tom playing all the drums together. And I got to send you the link to that because that's an amazing video. So I'll send that to you as well. Everybody, Barb Shupe. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you. Thanks, Toby.
Yes. Okay, so here's what we'll do for the rest of the show. Why don't we take a 5-minute break again, and then if you can hang around, I'd like to bring some people from the audience up here to get some eyewitness testimony, because you're in a haunted castle with all of us here. Who cares? If you don't want to use your name, you don't have to. I just want to hear your story. We can talk about whatever you want. If you have general questions for people, we can do that. If nobody has anything at all that they want to do, then I will play you some sounds from Port Orchard and Cottage Grove, and we can talk about those. But I'd rather not just go over my stuff that you can hear on the podcast. I'd like some fresh stuff. So what time is it right now? It's 10:05. Why don't we meet back here at 10:15 and think about if you want to do that. I'll play some more mood music, and then for the remainder of the show, hopefully we'll get some eyewitness testimony. Okay. Let me just go ahead and
testing.
Say test, 1, 2, 3.
Got it. Testing 1, 2, 3.
There we go. Okay. So do you want to go on the record? Do you mind if I broadcast this if you want to use your name?
Fine. That's
okay.
fine.
Okay, perfect. All right. So let me get the crowd settled down here. All right, guys. This is the part of the program. I'm going to go ahead and interview somebody up here live from the audience. So if you want to join us, let me turn the music down because that's super loud. All right, here we go. All right. Okay, and again, your name?
It's Stephanie.
Stephanie. Okay, Stephanie's joined us here live on stage. And Stephanie, you have a story.
My story essentially is about Manresa Castle. I was just talking with, it may have been your wife, out there and thinking of some of the funny things that happened to us here. I had a lot of paranormal experiences. I'm with the paranormal group,
Okay.
the lead investigator with this group. And, you know, to let you know, they all have a sense of humor because just because they crossed over, the spirits crossed over, they're still people.
Right.
You know? And we had a few actually kind of funny experiences I was telling her about up in the turret room on the 3rd floor.
Right.
There were 3 of us investigators. We were sitting up there, and we were really tired. And we got a lot of EVPs that night, but this is just kind of a funny one. We were sitting there and just like, oh, we're so tired and everything. And then we were talking about something, and I looked at one of them. I said, well, we're really professional because Amy Bruni had been there the week before. And,
famous Amy.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
she'd been there, and I was like, oh, yeah, we're really being professional. We're sitting here just, you know, whatever. And when we got back home and we listened to the EVP from it, and I was, like I said, I was telling them outside that we heard, you know, I said, oh, this isn't very professional. And the EVP came back, professional. And it was a female voice.
Right.
Clear as day.
Yeah.
And I thought, they're making fun of us.
Yeah.
They're making fun of us. You know?
Absolutely.
And then another experience I had was in one of the rooms up, I think it's 306, and there's 2 beds in there, and we had already decided to go to bed, but we left our recorders running, everything going through the night. We're one of those teams who let it run through the whole investigation, and then
Right.
we go through hours of, you know, listening to everything and paying attention. But I was in bed and I was, you know, kind of moving around and everything, and I thought, God, something's pulling my shirt. And I thought, well, maybe I'm stuck in something on the bed or whatever. But I kept turning over, and a friend of mine who was across the way, the other team member, she goes, what are you doing over there? I can hear you just moving all over. And I said, well, you know, something, you know, with my shirt. And she said, just don't worry about it. You know, everybody was tired.
Yeah.
And when we got home again, went over the EVPs, and we could listen and hear me going through my spiel about my shirt and everything, and then you heard, cheap shirt. And I'm like, well, yeah, it was a cheap shirt, you know, but hey, you know.
Opinionated ones here.
Opinionated, female.
Yeah.
We had more interaction with the female.
Well, now, there's a guy, William Becker, psychic out of Oregon City. He was always saying that people should dress the part for the ghost they're looking for, i.e., a gal in a cheap shirt who's not in a blouse.
Yeah.
May be scandalous to a ghost
Right.
from the 1800s. What do you think of that?
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that. I did a lot of investigations out of Fort
So where's your
Worth, too.
bonnet? Because you're not in full.
Well, we honestly try to get to the heart of things in a lot of different ways.
Okay.
I mean, we've done this. I've been in it for, gosh, I had my own group in San Diego for a long time, and then came here, and a friend of mine, her and I started a group here, and we've pretty much covered Port Townsend,
Oh, really?
essentially. And we stayed the night here and did investigation all night.
So what do you think's going on here?
It's essentially it's the past. I mean, it's the past. A lot of them hang on to those things. There's most of them you don't have to worry about as a
Right.
problem, but there is an area here that you do need to worry about and stay away from.
Okay.
That's just, you know, FYI, but it's not a common area.
Okay.
So don't have to worry about any guests or anything like that having any problems.
And why would that area be a hot zone? Do you suspect there was something bad that happened there?
I don't know exactly what happened there, but we couldn't get past a certain point because it wouldn't let us.
Like an invisible wall?
Yeah, and the EVPs, you could feel it. It was palpable.
Okay.
And I guess, again, the EVP was telling us to get the hell out.
Okay.
Didn't want us past, you just knew it did not want us past that point. There's just so many things about this castle.
What about this urban legend that I've heard about there being a boy or a child discovered in the grave with the owner of the castle when they had some accident and the grave was exposed?
It's true.
So there was a child
Yes.
that they didn't know where the child came from.
That's right. They suspect it was a niece that had come
Okay.
to stay with them.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
had died of an illness, but we
Maybe.
don't have any documentation on it.
That sounds like a good cover story.
You know, a lot
too.
of it is just passed down through tradition and
Right.
things like that. But there really isn't a lot of documentation. That is actually true, though, at the gravesite, because that is documented. They did find another.
And there is
little
reports
body
of a
in there.
child here.
Yes, there
Okay.
is. Now, a lot of things people talk about a little girl. We had one of our team members had an experience with a little boy,
Okay.
and it really was very shocking to her. Like they were talking about with Sasquatch, it
Right.
shocked her system. And we
Right.
see a lot of things, but I guess because it was a child and it happened so fast, and it was in the attic
Wow.
where we ran into that child.
Oh, in the attic. So above the turret,
Yes.
is there an access point?
Yes, yeah, there is.
Now, do you know anything about? Because I forgot to ask Sarah this, and Ron has left already. Do you know anything about this weird antenna that was supposedly existed on the roof of the castle?
Not heard about that one.
Okay.
No.
We'll get Sarah back here to talk about that. But supposedly there was some kind of weird antenna array that was not used for normal purposes, and it just kind of struck a mystery. I don't know
Well, in
any
the
more than that.
early 1800s was the time of the Enlightenment, so there were a lot of people getting into the spiritualist
Mm-hmm.
movement and things like that. So that wouldn't surprise me.
And isn't that where we are today? I mean, look at what we're doing.
Yes.
I mean, every show kind of makes an excuse of why they're the Travels Channel, but they're also a ghost show. It's just like, well, wait a second, you're the cooking show. Why are you in a haunted castle? It's just like, well, we're kind of at the height of this new movement.
Well, it comes and goes, and usually when things get, let's say, unstable in the country, we tend to move more towards the spiritual side of things and the unknown. I've just noticed that pattern.
Yeah.
But I can't state it as fact or anything.
So like right before, say, like the Great Depression,
Yeah.
things like that, right?
Yeah,
In the
and
20s?
Yeah, there was a place in San Diego, and I can't remember the name of the mansion. And it was guy who built it was a spiritualist, and he built 3 levels in his ceiling of open spaces so the spirits could come down and stay through those and then come in when they did seances.
Wow, it kind of
I
sounds...
mean, he's built his whole home around that. He was the head of the spiritualist movement
Okay.
at that time.
What about, I'll just ask you, what do you think of demons?
There are some very negative things out there, I'll tell you that.
Okay, but they're not exactly what you would call demons?
I don't know if you call it a demon or not.
Uh-huh.
There's things like we've run into an elemental here
Okay.
in Port Townsend. I won't say where, but that was shocking, and I feel totally comfortable
Yeah.
with spirits. You know, that people that were human.
This elemental, is it something you saw with your mind's eye?
Yes, but when it came out from where it came from, both of us at the same time were thrown back.
Okay.
And although we didn't see it, I shouted out what I was seeing, and that's what she said at the same time. We both went 2 different directions.
Okay.
But we've never left an investigation. We've also been where things have touched us or given us a hard time, but we've never left an investigation before. That one that night, we did.
Wow.
Because
And
it wasn't anything of this world.
Can you describe a little bit about what you're talking about?
It's kind of hard to describe. It was a water elemental.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of Barb Castle. It's kind of like that.
Say that again.
Barb Castle in
Lep
Ireland.
Castle. Oh, okay. I've heard
You've
of
heard
it.
of the elemental there?
Yeah.
Well, this was kind of similar. So it was we had the impression it was a water elemental, but it was. I just don't. I hate to say what it looked like because you guys will go. You know, that's, you know.
We were just talking about, cloak and cavemen
Yeah.
out in Greenwater, so yeah.
It was just. It's hard to tell, but it was in the mind's eye because I couldn't. When we had this place open where it came out of, it was coming from the wall up the ceiling,
Right.
and then it came up and out. And it was like black smoke, but you could see a remnant of some kind of skeletal form in it
Okay.
as it came out, and then it rushed us when it came out. And that's what threw us back about, oh gosh, we went quite a ways back. And we both looked at each other and was like, okay, this is, I mean, we're serious. What we do is very serious.
Yeah.
Because we want to understand. We also love history, and there's another layer to history, and you can learn about that through the
Right.
paranormal, and kind of understand, more as you go. But this was definitely the first time we've run into something like that.
And it was time to go.
It was time to go.
Yeah, no hesitation.
No
just
hesitation. We've seen
Yeah.
enough, done enough. We knew this was not,
right. Yeah.
something you want to mess with.
And do you think Port Townsend is supercharged, or is it just a normal, everyday kind of town with everyday kind of paranormal stuff?
It has a lot of paranormal activities. I don't think it's an everyday thing. It's like at other little towns.
Right.
This is abnormal, and I can kind of give you a reason why. This was originally supposed to be Seattle. They were building up the town to be that, and starting a railroad. Never finished from down there, but they already had the docks in place. The wooden ships came here. They did trade here. They had, sad to say, they had Chinese and people from all over the country, here working
Right.
here doing things. The only reason I say sad to say is because some of them weren't here on their own free will. They had Shanghaiing. They had the ladies of the night and everything. The dock was a dock, just like you'd find in San Francisco.
Right.
Except it was a smaller version. But with these ships in, there was a lot. I went to an estate sale and found 2 historical books on Port Townsend with that had documentation in it, had newspaper clippings, everything in it. And it was a really rough place back in the day. And sometimes if, let's say someone fell off a ship or whatever, or someone washed up on the beach, if they had really nice clothing, they'd find out who they were. But if they came up and they looked like they were a lady of the night, or if they looked poor, they buried them on the spot on the beach.
Wow.
I mean, this is documented. So there's stuff everywhere here. And it was really rough down by where the city hall is, and the
Downtown was rough.
downtown area,
Yeah.
especially over by, like I said, over by that area down there per se, the Maritime Center.
Okay. So the closer to
that's
the
where
wharf.
the red light district
Okay.
was located.
What about here? Was
Up
this
here,
ever used?
This is a wealthy.
It was.
I mean, he was one of the town founders.
Yeah, but this place was never used as a cat house, was it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I mean, it kind of would have been perfect for it.
Yeah,
right?
there are
Yeah.
places in Uptown Port Townsend that
Yeah,
were
like
definitely.
is the
and
Palace
downtown.
Hotel?
The Palace Hotel. Oh, definitely.
Definitely was a cat house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It was. Yeah. No. If
There's a madam there named Miss Kitty. Is that right?
They had a lot of different ones. Maria was, if I remember right, Maria was the main one.
Okay, Maria.
But they have named their rooms after
Right.
the ones, that
Yeah.
they could find evidence of them.
Are you staying here as well?
I live here in Port
Oh, you
Townsend.
do, so you don't need to. All right.
Yeah, I don't
You got to go
need
back
to.
to your own non-haunted room.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I live in
You
a
brought 'em home.
109-year-old house.
Okay.
That used to be the Irondale Schoolhouse, the first
okay.
schoolhouse in the Irondale Port Hadlock area.
Okay, so what do you have going on at home?
Well, just a few different things,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really won't go into that. My family
Okay.
wouldn't appreciate it.
Alrighty. But
I-
there is
you know,
stuff.
Yeah, there
All
is
right.
stuff. There is stuff.
And so what's the name of your group?
Red Ball Paranormal.
Red Ball?
Red Ball Paranormal.
How'd it get that name?
It's a long story.
Okay. Well, we'll have to hear that
And
one
it's
someday.
it's pretty much women.
Okay.
There's 3 of us, and most women can relate to this. That you're doing this investigation, and you have flashlights shining, and you're in a store or something that has all this beautiful jewelry, and it reflects, and you go, "Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, I think I'm going to ask if we can put it aside for the morning. Oh, we better get back to the investigation." Okay, it's like Red Ball.
Oh,
or
gotcha.
Squirrel.
Okay, squirrel. You could have called it Squirrel Paranormal.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
we came up with
Red Ball Paranormal. Okay, so people can find you online.
Yes, we have a Facebook page, and we do have a website.
If people want to have you come look at their house, is that something you guys do?
We rarely go into individual homes
Okay.
unless it's like a vacation home and they're not going to be there.
Okay.
We prefer doing historical buildings
Okay.
because of our our drive for history and the other layer of history.
Right.
We want to see what else we can find out and that matches up with history.
Right.
And we've had some incredible EVPs and a lot of luck. I mean, here it's like you can't go wrong.
No.
This place is incredibly, and we've also been out at Fort Worden too,
Okay.
and that's got its issues too. But they were connected. The town's connected
Right.
with Fort Worden, and you know, they're pretty much connected together.
Did you bring your group here, or is it just you?
It's just me tonight.
Okay, it's just you. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, Stephanie, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's up? Oh, I got a hot brunette coming up to me right now with a love note. Is that my tab?
Yeah, it's your tab.
Oh, jeez. What the hell?